How's it going, everyone? My name is Henry Lawsky, and today I'm going to be going over oxygen sensor testing. The primary vehicle I'll be using is my personal 2009 Toyota Rav4, and then later on in the video, I'll also be using a Chevy Equinox to demonstrate something. This is the wiring diagram for my oxygen sensors in my 2009 Toyota Rav4, and these are the locations of them in the vehicle. This first oxygen sensor I'll talk about is right here. This is bank 1, sensor 1. It is before the catalytic converter, and the test points for the voltage are right here in this connector. You'll see the 4 wires for it. Here's our second sensor. This oxygen sensor is a heated oxygen sensor in bank 1, sensor 2. And it is downstream after the catalytic converter. So this sensor is getting battery power. This black wire here is where we're testing for battery voltage in the sensor. The sensor itself is right here, and this is an air-fuel ratio sensor, and it is in bank 1, sensor 1. I'm going to go ahead and test it here for voltage. I'm going to put my black lead on ground and my red lead on the battery power, and we're getting 13.51 volts. Now at this point the vehicle's up to temperature. I'm about to pull out a scan tool and do the live readings for the voltage and amperage. I haven't done anything to alter the readings at this point, so these will be the results for normal conditions. If we go to our live data here, we'll see the first oxygen sensor, which is underneath the intake manifold, and we're getting 3.2 volts on that, and 0.1 or to 0.04, excuse me, amps. Here on this second graph, our second oxygen sensor is being shown by this green line here. We're showing around 4 to 6, maybe 4 to 7 volts on our oxygen sensor, which is down here. It is behind the oil pan and post catalytic converter. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the fuel injector. It's going to be for cylinder 3, and we're going to see how that affects the oxygen sensor readings. All right, I took the engine cover off to make it easier to access the fuel injectors. We went ahead and pulled the fuel injector for cylinder 3, and that's it right there. It's this black connector. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the car on, connect the scan tool, and we're gonna look at our readings, see how a misfire affects the oxygen sensor performance and readings. So after removing the ignition coil for cylinder 3, I connected the scan tool, and we're looking at our live data for our oxygen sensors with the misfire. So the difference here, it looks like our first sensor, which is in the engine bay, the air-fuel ratio sensor, the voltage reading is very similar to what we got the first time when the car was running normally. The oxygen sensor 2, which is, you know, the more traditional oxygen sensor, what you think of when you think of oxygen sensors, we're reading 0.015 volts, which is a lot lower than when the car was running normally. Essentially what I did with the with creating a misfire is trick the engine into, or trick the oxygen sensor into creating a lean condition because of the unburned air that passed through the engine and into the exhaust. But now we're back at normal numbers, healthy numbers for the engine and the oxygen sensor. So what I'm gonna do now is give it some throttle and see how these numbers will change. We are at 2,000 RPM. Looking, yep. So we went
down in voltage to 0.1 volts. We're going to go up to 3000 RPM. And we're at even less, so we're at 0.78 volts. So normally for bank 1 sensor 2, we're looking to sit right around 0.5 volts, but you notice that when we created a misfire and when we gave the car revs, there was more oxygen, so there was less sensor voltage. When we created the misfire, there was a lot more fuel and oxygen needed, and when we revved the engine, it was pulling more oxygen in. So as a result, the oxygen voltage, or the oxygen sensor voltage, dropped for both of them. Now I'm going to use this Chevy Equinox in a propane tank to demonstrate a higher voltage oxygen sensor reading from running bridge. All right, I'm in a Chevy Equinox now. Elliot has a propane tank and he's hooked up to where the evap line was. Here's the data for the oxygen sensor. Go ahead. Now you can see the voltage going up. The voltage is going up because we're creating a rich condition as he's pumping propane into the engine.
Those were my tests on the two vehicles, on the Toyota Rav4 and the Chevy Equinox, demonstrating what happens when an engine is running lean or running rich, how the oxygen sensor responds. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed.